So, as we dive into our first lesson on stress and how it contributes to weight gain, particularly weight gain around the belly, let's first take a few minutes to talk about what exactly is stress. Stress is our body's way of reacting to any perceived demand or threat. So, it's important to note that it is a perceived threat. So, what one person can perceive as stressful might not be very stressful to another. Our stress response is important and it is designed to protect us. It raises our fight or flight hormone cortisol. And yes, cortisol is one of the main causes of belly fat, but only if it's produced in excess. We do need a healthy production of cortisol to allow us to meet the demands of our life and to effectively have the energy to go about our days. When we are in a constant stress response, though, our digestion and production of other hormones is put on hold and our blood sugar is increased. And we're going to dive into that a little more detail in the next slide. But it's important to note that these responses are healthy and necessary, and they're not a problem when stress is short term. In fact, they can be positive and drive us into action and help us to make needed changes to improve our lives. Let's take a minute to dive deeper into how cortisol contributes to belly fat and affects our blood sugar. So, we have a stress emergency, and our adrenal glands, which help regulate blood sugar, pump out cortisol to give us motivation to meet our stressor, while shutting down digestion and immune processes. Our body is signaled to release stored glucose as energy. Ideally, the body rebalances after the emergency, sending insulin to reduce the cortisol and glucose. However, if we're always in a state of chronic stress, then cortisol is chronically elevated. What this does is cause the body to store fat as a survival mechanism, and the resulting blood sugar imbalances leads to the dysfunction in how we use and store our energy. This directly results in increased visceral fat, meaning that fat around your organs, like belly fat. So let's dive a little deeper into how long-term increased cortisol production can negatively affect our hormones. To do this, we need to take a look at our hormone hierarchy. So our hormones exist in a very delicate balance, and they're in tiers. 3 tiers. The first tier are hormones that are basic for our survival: oxytocin, insulin, and cortisol. Our body will prioritize making those over all other hormones to keep us in homeostasis. In the second tier is important precursor hormones, which help to make many of the hormones in level 3. The testosterone, estrogens, and progesterone, the sex hormones, melatonin, which controls our circadian rhythm and sleep cycles, and our thyroid hormones, which regulate our metabolism. So, the stability of tier 3 hormones directly depends on the balance in the first 2 tiers. So remember, our adrenals are producing our insulin and cortisol. So if they are constantly working to prioritize insulin and cortisol, they are not going to be able to make the precursors that we need for production of estrogen. Because remember, our ovaries are no longer making that. So it is critical and important that we are prioritizing supporting our adrenals to effectively balance our hormones. How can you actually reduce stress to support your adrenals and help reduce cortisol? First thing is look where you might be going to extremes in your life, whether that's in your diet, your exercise routines, or your schedules. So you want to be nice and even. So kind of eating consistently healthy foods, exercising consistently. And so you're not either sitting on the couch all the time or constantly out over exercising. And looking at your schedules to see, are you prioritizing what's important to you and saying no to things? The second critical thing is to prioritize your sleep. This is probably one of the best ways to balance your hormones. I have provided some more guidance on this in the resources, so make sure you take a look at that. And focusing on real self-care. So this doesn't mean just going to get a manicure or a girl's night out, although it can be those things. What real self-care looks like is being true to yourself. So it's saying no, letting go of what others are thinking, noticing your negative thoughts and taking time to try to turn those around. Spending time either alone or with people who fill you up and doing things that you actually enjoy. So, this following journal prompt can be helpful in identifying your stressors and help to reduce them. So, first, identify your top 3 stressors. Journal and reflect on each one. No judgments, just write. Then take the top stressor and dive a little deeper. Identify how this makes you feel physically. Where are you feeling this stress in your body? Mentally, what specific thoughts come up when you are feeling this stress? And emotionally, what feelings do you associate with this stress? Write all of that down. Then take a look and see if there are steps you can take to minimize this stress. What would that look like in your life? If you can't reduce the stress, can you reframe your perception of it and focus on how it could provide a potential benefit for your future?